Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is wonderful to see your smiling but masked faces. I want to thank Eric for kicking things off for us today and Kevin Smith for that introduction. It is an honor to be here today with the Kentucky Distillers Association, and it is exciting to see bourbon continuing to boom and to bring Kentucky along with it. First, we ought to thank the Kentucky Distillers Association for being there for those of our families that are struggling the most, having raised more than $3.4 million for tornado relief efforts. These are much needed funds that are going to go directly to families in the greatest of need, and every single dollar is going to go to a family that was harmed in the worst tornado disaster we have ever seen. This is the single largest donation to our fund, and it is greatly appreciated. So as we all know, bourbon's heart and its soul lives right here in Kentucky. It lives in our history and in our heritage. It flows from Kentucky's clear streams and rises from our limestone aquifers. It purifies, distills, and ages to perfection under the care of Kentucky master distillers and all of the great people who produce what I think is one of the greatest drinks on the face of this earth. As much as anything produced by people can, bourbon represents Kentucky in all of its boldness, its warm welcome, and yes, in its complexity of character. Known internationally as the bourbon capital of the world, Kentucky has enjoyed a decades-long resurgence of America's native spirit. That's a success story attributable both to the quality of the spirits and the careful stewardship of the distillers, lawmakers, and other stakeholders. We're here today to talk about KDA's latest Bourbon Impact Study, and the numbers, frankly, are outstanding. That would be true in any year and in any report, but to see this type of growth during a pandemic is nothing short of incredible. So let's look at it. The KDA study measures bourbon's economic impact in Kentucky at an astounding $8.94 billion. Right now, there are 95 distilleries operated by 75 companies spread out over 40 Kentucky counties. That is 3 times the number of distilleries that we had 20 years ago. The bourbon industry employs more than 22,500 people with an annual payroll of $1.23 billion, and these are great jobs, and the people in them are proud to create such an amazing product that is known worldwide and helps us as Kentucky to be known worldwide. Since the first survey in 2009, jobs and payroll have more than doubled. These jobs have helped provide a good quality of life for so many of our Kentucky families, and that's just amazing to hear. Kentucky's distillers are also undertaking major building projects. We saw a lot this last year. We welcomed revivals like the Dant family and Log Still. We saw exciting newcomers like Horse Soldier Bourbon in Somerset. And we saw it with stalwarts like Four Roses and Heaven Hill, where we cut the ribbons on visitor centers that are going to bring even more people to Kentucky. Industry-wide, distillers are in the middle of a $5.2 billion building boom, with $3.3 billion pledged to projects over the next 5 years. Folks, that means construction jobs. That means things happening in our community. That means food is put on the table for more than just the direct employees. It has a serious and a great economic impact. The production levels the industry is hitting are also just unprecedented. Distillers produced a record 2.4 million barrels of bourbon in 2020. That's the third year they've topped 2 million. Right now, there are more than 10.3 million barrels of bourbon aging deliciously in rickhouses across the Commonwealth. Kentucky's distillers also have a major positive impact on our farmers. We don't talk about that a lot. Purchasing 12.5 million bushels of corn right here in Kentucky. And the well-loved Bourbon Trail and upgrades to visitor centers is driving a multi-million-dollar tourism industry. In fact, this has become a central part and theme of Kentucky's tourism industry, bringing people from all over the nation And sometimes folks who come here for business stay in just a little bit longer and spending a few more dollars to enjoy it. One soft spot in this report is exports. Because of retaliatory tariffs, Distillers in 2020 shipped just over $390 million in spirits to global markets. That's down about $170 million from the previous year, but I'm happy to say the impediments that caused that are no longer in place. By working closely with my good friend, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, we have removed the harmful bourbon tariffs from the EU, not just stopped them from increasing, but removed them entirely. That'll ensure fair markets and great products like bourbon always rise to the top in competitive markets. It is going to be a world. So today's KDA report adds momentum. And where we had the greatest economic development year in the history of Kentucky and bourbon. Dollars in new private sector investment, a mark we had never been close to. We had at the second highest hourly wage that we have ever reported. Kentucky. Then we can turn these last 2 years of great growth into 20 years. It means that we create that workforce of the future by investing heavily in public education. Fords or the next horse soldier or the next big company that are coming in aren't just shovel. Now is not only the time for bourbon, it's the time for Kentucky. Bold. Then they
I think I've realized while I was having trouble speaking, I'm not used to wearing a tie. So I need to follow the governor's lead. And also thank you, Governor, for your administration. A pleasure to work with our industry. Rocky, we see Rocky back there. Larry Hayes, Allison Cox-Taylor with ABC, do fantastic work for you. So thank you. I'm going to loosen this so I can talk. All right. We've been honored to work with legislative leaders over the past 12 years who understand that bourbon is more than just a drink. It is jobs, investment, tourism, and so much more. Unfortunately, even though Prohibition ended nearly 90 years ago, many of its restrictive laws and policies remain on the books, and it's been a chore to modernize so our signature industry can reach its full potential. I'm honored today to have the privilege of introducing one of the chief architects behind those reforms, Senate President Robert Stivers, who I believe is the longest-serving Senate President in the country. Second longest. All right, close. In 2014, Senator Stivers' bold leadership paved the way for skyrocketing barrel production and record inventories through the Bourbon Barrel Reinvestment Tax Credit to help offset the discriminatory tax that distillers pay on aging barrels. Senator, thank you and your entire Republican caucus for their support.
Thank you, Eric, and everyone that's here today. Governor, I want to add just a little bit more besides what they've just done in this recent series of tornadoes and storms. Kevin Smith will know that on many occasions during the pandemic, they made me feel like a bootlegger because I would go out to Kevin and say, we needed sanitizer. We had to move it, and my truck would go out there and they would load me up and it would be full. And, you know, if Jimmy Higdon were here, but I know Bill Samuels, he'll understand that, my front end was kind of high, my back end was kind of low. And so I've truly felt like a good Eastern Kentucky bootlegger, taking all the hand sanitizer back to Rockcastle County, Clay County, Bell County. And at one point in time, this is how good this group has been to reach out to the public. I had two 55-gallon drums that I took to Pikeville Hospital, and that really made my front end go up. But truly, this group is not just creators of jobs. They are people who watch out over our commonwealth and are willing to step up and contribute. Back in 2012, Senator Thayer and myself went to meet with Bill Samuels and several people at the Kentucky Distillers Association. They weren't the happiest group that there was, because just prior to that, they had gone out on the front steps and poured bottles of bourbon out to protest the ad valorem tax on bourbon barrels. So as we sat there discussing this with them in 2012, the single biggest impediment was the ad valorem tax that is placed on a product that can't be moved for several years. So we made a commitment that day that if we got the opportunity to repeal that, we would, and we did. And that was the start. Almost immediately, we saw the industry go from point X in employment to increasing in a 3-year period almost 2,000 jobs. They went from X in investment to X plus $2 billion in investment in and around, putting up brick houses, increasing their distillation process, adding those employees. We followed the next year with Senate Bill 11 and John Schickel, which set up the mechanism to create the destination sites and sales on property. With these two things, by cutting taxes and removing regulatory burdens, the industry took off, going from 4.3 million barrels to now, as the governor reports, over 10 million barrels. This is what a good economic environment looks like. This is how it creates jobs, and then this is how the partnerships and this industry steps up and thanks the Commonwealth for creating a signature industry by reaching out and helping in those times of need. It's an amazing partnership we have with the bourbon industry in this state. So on a day that we celebrate numbers, let's celebrate the numbers, the job opportunity, the investment, the taxes, and let's celebrate our partnership and friendship with the Kentucky Distillers Association and what they have done throughout the state. And how far does it reach? It reaches to my hometown. I have a stave mill that cuts white oak barrels that move over to Laurel County, that go from Laurel County to the Distillers. It's just not a central Kentucky thing. It is a statewide initiative that affects every place and any place in this state. So to Eric, you and your members, we cannot say enough as policymakers for the work that the Kentucky Distillers Association and the whole bourbon industry has contributed back to this state, and we thank you for that effort.
Well, thank you so much, Senator. And for the record, Senator Thayer wants to make sure everybody knows that he voted no on that tax increase back in 2009. So let me thank him. Please take a minute. Senator Stivers is one of our champions. So is Senator Thayer, who has guided landmark legislation over the past several years to make Kentucky a model for direct-to-consumer shipping. So thank you for that. And along with his counterpart, his comedian in crime, where's Morgan? Senator McGarvey, who has helped on the Democratic side. You two guys owe me a bourbon karaoke, I think, that y'all had promised. So you're in. And I don't see Senator Schickel here today. I'm sure he's busy. But Senator Stivers is exactly right. If you're a visitor and you visit any of our Kentucky Bourbon Trail distilleries, you owe Senator Schickel a drink. Because that Senate Bill 11 authorized cocktail sales at distilleries, which has led to a surge in robust, immersive tourism experience, record attendance, thousands of jobs, and hundreds of millions in capital investment at our distillery stops. So thank you to Senator Schickel. Now it's my honor to introduce House Speaker David Osborne, who in addition to being one of the most powerful leaders in Kentucky, also has the added responsibility of Bill Samuels as a constituent. Under Speaker Osborne's watch, the House has passed multiple reforms and protections, from direct shipping to an overhaul of the state's ignition interlock system to help keep drunk drivers off the roads and save lives. Thanks to Speaker Osborne's pro-business philosophy, and as mentioned with distillers now in 40 counties, bourbon has enjoyed more support in the House than ever before. Mr. Speaker, On behalf of the KD and our members, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it.
Having Bill Samuels as a constituent is the least of my concerns, I can assure you. Robert, you were exactly right. There were a lot of unhappy distillers in 2012. Dame and I, too, voted no. But I can tell you, as unhappy as they were, there was nobody that shed any more tears than I did as I watched them dumping that beautiful amber product on the front steps. I wanted to get my towel and sponge and go out there and gather things up. But it's an honor to be here to celebrate this industry and this industry's success. And the General Assembly over the last 10 years has worked diligently to amend laws, to change laws, to propel the bourbon industry to the standard bearer that it is now. Over the 10-year span, we passed 17 bills revolutionizing Kentucky's archaic alcohol laws. As Eric said, it's been a long time since Prohibition, but many of those laws have been rooted in Prohibition. And many of those bills were omnibus bills that allowed for the dramatic transformation of the bourbon industry and its ability to sell and market its product. Kentucky Bourbon Trail has revolutionized the face of Kentucky tourism. Tourism up 150% this year, only 14% short of the high in 2019. The craft tour is up 35%, a record high in 2021. The $3.3 billion that the Kentucky Distillers Association estimates will be spent over the next 5 years includes over $100 million in tourism operations. And it's those tourism operations that fuel tourism, that fuel discretionary spending and create vibrancy from one end of this Commonwealth to the other. Legislature's collective actions have put an open for business sign on Kentucky. And you mentioned, Eric, Senator Gregory. I want to mention Adam Koenig in the House L&O chair, who has led the way on the House on doing that, as well as Chad McCoy, who have been visionaries in creating alcohol legislation. Because of these policies, we've seen a 400% increase in the number of distilleries in Kentucky, 129% increase in jobs, 179% increase in payroll, and an average salary that's jumped 32% to now over $101,000. But we all recognize there's work to do. We've given the distillers all the tools that they need. We have an incredible infrastructure. We have an incredible support system. We have laws that allow them to market their products. But we still have an archaic tax system that prohibits and creates barriers to entry. This General Assembly is committed to comprehensive tax reform during this session. With our record reserves and budget reserve trust fund, this legislature is ready to tackle meaningful tax reform that will advance our pro-growth, pro-business policies that will continue to make Kentucky the bourbon capital of the world. As I said, Kentucky makes 95% of the world's bourbon, 100% of everything that's fit to drink, but yet over 2,200 distilleries have chosen to not locate in Kentucky. That is unconscionable, it's unacceptable, and this legislature is ready to attack it. Guys, congratulations, thank you. Until 5 o'clock this afternoon when it's appropriate, cheers to all the men and women that represent the bourbon industry.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And you mentioned a couple of folks that we'd like to call out as well. Whip Chad McCoy from Bardstown, the bourbon capital of the world, and that's trademarked. Seriously. I think Chad gets $1 every time somebody says that. He's led the way on so many pieces of legislation, including the pioneering vintage spirits law in 2017, which didn't help distillers a bit, but it helped our tourism and hospitality partners, and they've really taken advantage of that. So thank you. And Chairman Koenig over here, Chairman of the House Licensing and Occupations Committee, who's been one of the most fair yet fierce advocates for shipping, DTC shipping, to put us on the level playing field with wine and a path for even greater success at advancement. So thank you, sir. And we have a saying in Kentucky that bourbon brings people together, and you can see that's on full display today. We are blessed to have support on both sides of the political aisle. So thank you to Democratic leader Joni Jenkins and her caucus for their support in helping to pass these key pieces of legislation in true bipartisan fashion. Representative Graham. Yeah, thank you very much. And before I forget this, the architect behind the study itself, and this is his sixth one, is Dr. Paul Coombs, standing there, the Silver Fox. He's almost gotten this down to a science, but when we first came to him in 2009 and said, we need help to determine if we are a signature industry, right? And yes, it was incredible, the numbers you showed us, and you continue, so thank you. Finally, Bourbon could not have a better partner than the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. And we're fortunate today to have Ashley Watts, President and CEO, with us. And before I turn it over to her, let me thank Ashley and the Chamber for your continued leadership and partnership with Kentucky's entire business community. I would specifically remember calling Ashley in 2020 when COVID first broke out and said, most of our distillers are shifting to hand sanitizer. And she immediately said, how can we help? Let's get it out. And within hours, we had a website up and running. We were taking requests. And it's leadership like that that we find so valuable. So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Ashley Watts. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful to see everyone, and I echo Eric's sentiments that if anything can bring us together in this kind of political climate, it's always going to be bourbon. We are fortunate to have such a great relationship with the distillers all across Kentucky, and Kevin Smith is actually going to be the chair of the Kentucky Chamber come October, so there's a lot of synergy there as well. I don't know if you all have heard, but we're in the middle of a legislative session, and the Chamber has focused our entire legislative agenda on making sure that we are competitive and making sure that we can truly compete with other states. And there is nothing that gives us more of a competitive edge than Kentucky bourbon. Kentucky bourbon, as you all know, is in high demand, as illustrated in this report, and we must continue to build off this momentum. Because other states are starting to look at what we've been doing, and many are opening their own distilleries to try to compete with our Kentucky bourbon distilleries. We must ensure we continue to lead the distilling industry, which encompasses 22,000 jobs with an annual payroll of over $1 billion. And from the Chamber's perspective, I could quote those stats all day long. This industry offers high-paying jobs that are also unique. People truly love what they do in this industry. But we know there are challenges across all industries in Kentucky when it comes to workforce. We have to be proactive in order to maintain our place as the #1 place for distilleries, distilling jobs, and the bourbon tourism industry. The Chamber believes, I love hearing it from Speaker Osborne about tax reform, the Chamber believes tax reform is key to keeping Kentucky competitive across all sectors and making Kentucky the most attractive place to live, work, do business, and raise a family. Kentucky has everything a distiller needs to grow and to thrive. They just need a better tax structure to make it more competitive and attractive to locate here. But there are some tax reform specific to the distilling industry that would help us be more competitive that we hope to help with this upcoming legislative session. We applaud the work of the legislature over the last couple of years for all the various bills they've passed to help this industry, as President Stivers laid out. And at the Kentucky Chamber and for the whole business community, we are committed to supporting our signature industries, which are key to our competitiveness. We congratulate the bourbon industry for another record-breaking year, and we look forward to working hand in hand with all of the distillers across the state and the KDA. And I echo Speaker Osborne's sentiment that it might be a little early, but we are celebrating, so cheers and congratulations.
Well, thank y'all. First, let me really quickly thank all the legislators in the Commonwealth who have stepped up for our industry. I miss Susan Westrom over here, one of our earliest, back when things were bad, Susan was there for us. It was one of our first, I think the first 100 Proof Award winner, as many of the ladies and gentlemen up here are. So thank you to all the policymakers and legislators and Governor Beshear and your dad as well, who helped put us on this trajectory. We appreciate that. We will be available for any questions. We've got copies of the full report for you. It will be online this afternoon as well. And I'm sure any of the distillers up here will be happy to do a quick interview if you would like to talk to them. So thank you very much. I appreciate you coming today.